Hey everybody, Scott Luton with Supply Chain Now here in beautiful St. Louis as we continue our coverage of the 41st Annual AME International Conference. I'm joined here by my new best friend, Dr. William Harvey, who is a plant manager for a leading chemicals company, but he's also a big volunteer leader here for AME. William, how you doing?
Lovely today. Thanks for having me, Scott.
Great to see you. You know, you were the first person I saw this morning as I got here at 4:30 a.m. it felt like.
Yeah, and AME is all about its volunteers. So in this case, I get the 6:30 to 8:30 registration. So got a chance to connect with you early this morning. So it's always nice.
Well, now you're a Marine, right? Because you previously were on active duty. So getting up early probably is second nature now.
Very much so. So this is, I think, also being in manufacturing, the world starts early and never ends. So at this point, that Marine Corps leadership certainly helps with the manufacturing world.
You know, back in the 80s, the Army ran this campaign, which I always loved. I still love to this day, where it says something about how the Army gets more done by 9 a.m. than the rest of the world gets done all day long. I kind of feel like that some days. Do you?
I do, but I'm always curious why the Army is waiting until 9 a.m. to get it done. So that's usually 5:30 in the Marine Corps. So at this point, give a little jest to them because they also celebrated their 250th anniversary or birthday this year.
That's
Navy's coming up next week, and the Marine Corps gets to celebrate its glory on 10 November 1775. 250 years later this year. So good times.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, hey, I appreciate your service. And I love how you're conveying a lot of those leadership principles that were ingrained in you into industry today, which we're going to touch on in just a second. But let's level set a bit. Tell us more about your current role and anything you can share about the organization.
Yes, I work for a specialty chemical manufacturing company out of Cincinnati, Ohio. And it's absolutely tremendous. There's two products I would just say just excite me that I get up and get to deal with in the morning. One is these recyclable cups that are not recyclable today, as most people know them. So if you go to Starbucks, you got to throw those away at the end of the day. You can't repulp them, you can't recycle them. My company has found a way to make those repulpable and recyclable. So that is incredible. And I've got some coworkers I'm working on with a project where we're actually just feeding the world. So making yield increase in crop production and agriculture. So two really cool things, and they're all about water-based chemistries. So making the world a better place through our work.
It is consequential work, and it's got to be so rewarding to be part of what you're kind of speaking to. And I believe you call Cincinnati home, is that right?
Cincinnati is home. I left for 4 years to hang out in Okinawa, Japan, and Quantico, Virginia, and then made my way back after the time in the Marine Corps.
Let's give a quick shout out to one of my favorite Cincinnatians, I think yours as well, Ray Attia, if he's tuned in out here on today's show. Ray, hope you're doing well. All right. So William, I got to ask you, I know we're about halfway through the conference, and I know you've been busy with your volunteer duties, but I'm hoping you had a chance to sit in on some sessions, have some sidebar conversations. And my hunch is, especially what I know about you, that you've already got a list of eureka moments and takeaways. What's one?
Yes, Scott, the one that stands out to me is something common in career, which is in corporate America, we focus on individual goals. And Cujo was the opening keynote for the conference this year. He's an Air Force pilot, flies the F-15s and F-22s. And what I think was really cool about his conversation, one of the points he was trying to make is about team-based goals. And what I find in corporate America is they're very individual. And for me, Cujo is really sharing a message that I think is common to the military, but maybe is not even understood very well because we're so used to just working that way.
Yeah.
Whether you're in the Air Force, Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, Space Force, and whatever else comes next. It's one of those things where you're gonna say it's very much based at the team element. And I think that's one of those key takeaways, and I'm hopeful the folks that listened in yesterday get to take that away.
William, it sounds like a great session, and I can only imagine if he hasn't already written a book that Cujo's got some incredible stories. And you know, I love your eureka moment because it is a massive team sport, right? Whether we're talking supply chain, whether we're talking continuous improvement. In fact, that's been one of my common threads in all these interviews we're doing. Is it takes a whole organization, it takes a culture of excellence and continuous improvement and lean thinking to really move mountains. Would you generally agree with that?
Completely, and I think that's the really important part where if there's not clarity, that commander's intent, that guidance, the direction of which you're heading, that's where the confusion starts to set in. And I think so long as you can keep that standard clear and where we're headed as a vision, that's really the critical part. And then really unleashing the team's creativity and their potential after that.
Yes, oh, I love it. I love it. We're gonna get to all this good news we're getting from William. There's a good news Gazette he puts out. Stay tuned. We'll let you know where you can find that. You've got an incredible leadership journey, right?
Thank you.
Marine, industry, now you're helping the light bulb go on for so many others. What has been a key fundamental or two leadership principle for you that's guided this journey?
Yeah, so there's two. They may sound familiar. The first is know yourself and seek self-improvement. The second one is know your people and look out for their welfare. So really it's that combination of factors that I have to have the self-awareness of where I need to improve, and equally looking out for folks. So if they're a little bit off kilter, I can go support them. It could be process, it could be family, it could be personal, but ultimately just being there and noticing those changes in folks to take care of them.
All right, I'm gonna ask you maybe a tricky follow-up, but if you had to pick one of those two principles that is the most under practiced between them out in industry, what would that be?
I think the first one, where I think about knowing yourself and seeking self-improvement, one of the things that I would say is helpful for me when I reframe it, and this goes back to Ray Attia, who we give a shout out to. Ray taught me to ask what went well and what needs improvement. And just that subtle reframe helped me a tremendous amount. And something I had shared with Ray that I said is taking it even to another level. When I asked the question of what needs improvement, I always got things focused on tasks. So we changed the question in our daily huddles, and the question became, who has done something worth recognizing since we last met? That shifted it. And the really cool part that came into my organizations has been you build trust, and then you build camaraderie and some commitment to go solve a problem. Because if I start with 3 good things and I ask for your help from your department, it's really easy. But before it was just critical and commenting on people. So I think being aware of how you show up as a leader is critically important in that world.
William, that is $1 million, billion-dollar advice. I really appreciate that. And by the way, folks, we referenced Ray Attia a couple times. Go check out Run, Improve, Grow, The Fearless Frontline, a great read on some of the stuff that William is sharing. Okay, speaking of great mantras, I picked up one of yours as I was doing my homework on you, William. Automation without kaizen often means doing the wrong thing faster. What does that mean?
So when I think about kaizen and the way that I've been taught to practice it, really get the manual work understood before you start trying to change equipment. And furthermore, before you start trying to change the process. What I've seen, particularly in the last 20 years, where computers have been able to automate more and more, we're actually just taking a really bad process and automating it, which means we're just doing the wrong thing faster. I mean, as a systems thinker, I have to think in myself, like the best thing if I'm doing the wrong thing is just to stop. So that's that key point for me where I just say, let's stop, let's figure out what work should look like. And then, and only then, if we can automate it, should we have that conversation and go forward as the improvements stack on top of each other.
Take that advice to heart, especially in this golden age of automation where we're trying to automate, and rightfully so, mostly so, rightfully so, trying to automate almost everything. Folks, sometimes we got to call time out, which is what you're suggesting, and make sure we're automating a sound process and a sound approach. Okay, in the broader sense, when we talk about building, and you've referenced this a couple times, that true culture of continuous improvement, for those organizations trying to build that, what's a key best practice there?
So there's a setup to the answer, and that is, if you've heard the phrase, we're standing on the tops of, or on the shoulders of giants.
Right.
The thing I realized when I was doing some work years ago was I was actually making the work incrementally better, just a little bit better than the previous generation, the previous person. And what it made me realize is I'm also wrong. And that to me was a powerful moment, because it wasn't that I would ever get necessarily to the right answer. What I was doing was just building on top of what somebody else's work was before me. And then it reframed it. So oftentimes I was in this telling habit, which is very common for people that know stuff. They want to tell people what they know.
Right.
And then there's this beautiful thing that happened to me one day. I said, the reality is humans are creative. And the reality is I don't know what this other person's thinking unless I ask a question. So for me, it became one of those conversations where I know what I would do, but maybe, just maybe, the thing that enhances and builds on the shoulders of me and others is really just that new creative thing that we don't even know exists in the world. So to me, it's that question of how do we get that out of people, and just keep asking questions until we get to the point where we have something bigger and better and more beautiful. And even if they don't come up with the idea that maybe was as good as the one that I thought I had, it's their idea, they're committed to it, and I'm supporting them in whatever they're trying to do.
William, I love that. It reminds me of the phrase, seek first to understand, right? That so many of us just jump right over and get to the second step because we do want to tell. I think it's a human quality. Even those of us that don't know anything, we want to tell folks stuff. And then I think secondly, the humility is one of the things I heard you kind of speaking to there. Leaders, guys, if we're not embracing authenticity and humility, and it's sometimes being vulnerable, what are we doing, right?
Yeah, I would say I know that might have been rhetorical, but if we're not doing that, we're destroying trust or the opportunity to build trust.
Right.
So I think that vulnerability-based approach from leadership is what enables trust.
Yeah.
And I always chuckle when I think about, like, everybody knows you don't know what you're talking about, so just say it. We can move on. But if you pretend too long, we're all going to understand, like, we can't trust that person.
Saying I don't know. You know,
Yes,
I've heard
absolutely.
some folks, their take is never say that.
Yes.
I can't disagree more. I trust people that tell me when I ask a question,
Mhm.
"Hey, I don't know, but I'll go find out." That's like the most beautiful words you can ever say. Okay, William, there's so much more to you and your journey and what you're doing than we can cover here in this brief interview. But I got a two-part question for you. Let's touch on this Good News Gazette.
Yes.
When did you launch that, and how can folks? What is it, and how can folks find it?
So the Good News Gazette came out 3 weeks ago. That's how new it is. But when I was looking at the world and the communication and the media, it was really, really divisive. And I think really one of those purposes in life is how do you bring joy? How do you bring unity? And for me, that Good News Gazette is how I start Monday mornings, and that's on LinkedIn. So people, if they aren't connected, certainly can connect or follow, and you'll see that come out every Monday. And my intent with this is really just to start the week with good news, because I think it's too easy to get lost in the bad news.
Yeah, I love that. We're kindred spirits in that regard. Good news, we can't get enough of it. But you know what? If you go looking for it, there's always good news. And I've got a new source, the Good News Gazette. Okay, so LinkedIn, how can folks connect with you beyond LinkedIn, William?
So one of the best ways is actually to come to Milwaukee next year, October 26th to 29th. We're going to have the Association for Manufacturing Excellence in Milwaukee. There's an amazing team that's already been working for the last 2 months to put this together. What you're going to find is a lot of stuff around sharing, learning, and growing. And I think that's the really important part, this networking opportunity, getting to meet really cool folks. And as I was prepping for this, I realized Scott and I both knew some common folks in Cincinnati, and you got to work back there. So to me, the community is amazing, and it's a chance to build. So you'll see me all over social media, particularly LinkedIn, for AME over the next year. So I'm hopeful to see you in person. And the one thing I would share with you, I know we're talking about supply chain. The Association for Manufacturing Excellence came about in the early 1980s, and that's where this work came from. But we'll have anywhere from 20 to 50% of folks that don't work directly in manufacturing. So I think it's really important to know that this is about how do you make work better with a very people-centric approach.
William, outstanding. Folks, you can learn more about all of that, including next year's international conference in outstanding Milwaukee, Wisconsin at ame.org. And by the way, gosh, Milwaukee, you had Harley Davidson based there. You had Briggs and Stratton based in Milwaukee, I believe. It's a great city of industry. So I'm looking forward to seeing you in Milwaukee, getting great beer, burgers, and cheese, huh?
Absolutely. And if you haven't been to Wisconsin, I do invite you to eat these cheese curds. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you'll understand after that first round. And you'll probably be eating the second one with Scott. So
no doubt.
Look out for us there.
No doubt. All right, folks. Really enjoyed my time with Dr. William Harvey. Make sure you connect with William on LinkedIn. Check out the Good News Gazette. Check out what he's doing from a volunteer leadership standpoint with AME. Join us in Milwaukee next year. Go to ame.org to learn more. And stay tuned as we continue our coverage of the 41st AME International Conference right here in St. Louis.